Hey y'all, welcome to the Undrunken Podcast. I'm your host Courtney, and each week we talk real life beyond the bottle. What it means to dump the drink, live life fully, freely, and undrunken. Let's get into it. What's up, y'all? I am so excited for this episode. I am talking to Rory. He's from Australia. He's using meditation to help people who want to live alcohol-free. This is an epic interview. Let's jump in. Well, Rory, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you jumping on, and I'm excited to share what you do with all of the listeners here. But first, I'd really love to dive into who you are and get to know you a little bit. And I always like to start off with what led you to Undrunken?
Well, I think we connected on social media. So, I always love to connect with other people in the sober space. So I was happy to connect with you, and I love the name. So yeah, I've been in this space for around 8 years now, and I've made lots of connections on Instagram. Actually, I ran a retreat with someone who we first connected on Instagram, so it's it's a great place to meet.
It is. And then what got you to the sober space? Do you have your own story and relationship with alcohol that led you to this?
Yeah, so I grew up in the UK, and in the UK, I'm based in Australia now. In the UK, like many places in the world, there's a very rampant drinking culture. So growing up in the 90s, it was just very normal to drink a lot. So it was normal in my family, but also normal in my friend groups. It was normal to go to the pub at 15 years of age, and 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 what I found was that I'd always been quite an introverted person, and finding alcohol, I was like, this is good. Like that introverted, shy, quiet Rory, who was often overthinking things. He got quietened down, and this new, more extrovert version of me could be out there with large groups of friends, and enjoying being a bit more out there. So that I think what initially happened was, it was a great solution. It was a solution. Drinking was a solution to being a bit quiet or anxious in social situations, and also being a bit of an overthinker. It was great. It was a great solution to that overthinking. So because this worked for me, it worked for me from mid-teenage years. It worked until I was about 35. And that was through, in my 20s, I was working in and around the music industry. So I was in bands, I was a DJ, I was a club promoter, I was a music journalist. And it was extremely normal. Like now, as a coach, I talk to lots of people, and it's extremely normal in almost every profession, whether it's doctors or lawyers or tradie people. Like it's just normal in many industries. So, but music industry, it's kind of glamorized even. So this was a normal behavior for me, and I would be, I have had periods where I drank daily. So, for example, my mum died when I was 18, and that coincided with me finishing high school and starting university. So it was very easy to mask the fact that I drank every day for 3 years after that, because many people did. It was university. So that was my period of daily drinking. And I remember at the time thinking, on these nothingy nights, I would still have to have a bottle of wine to fall asleep. But mostly my drinking was binge drinking. So that might be 3 or 4 nights a week, or it might be one night a week. But from in my 20s and early 30s, it was quite heavy drinking. So it'd be whole weekend jobs, like partying, often connected with work. Like I would be invited on, when I moved to Australia as a journalist, I'd be invited on things like trips to Vegas to review bars and restaurants. Or I was once invited to, it was a vodka festival in New Zealand, where we were presented with a litre of vodka just for our rooms, even though they served cocktails literally from breakfast till dinner. So where, I guess, so this solution to my introvert nature and solution to overthinking worked for me until I hit about 35, where there was a bit of a tipping point and the hangovers were getting worse and worse, and I was realizing that it was costing much more than it was giving me. So going on these big binges at the weekends, which would often involve drugs as well, that could have a hangover / come down that would last till Thursday, and I would just be feeling like I was getting promoted in my career at this point, and I just think I can't be unproductive for 3.5, 4 days a week, and like having quite a lucky and privileged upbringing, not having had too many bad things to happen, like at least physically, knowing that 95 of the 100 times I'd felt worse in my life had been self-inflicted through alcohol. So reaching this tipping point of thinking something has to change here. So on my 35th birthday, we hosted this huge illegal warehouse party thing, and after, like, I didn't enjoy the DJing, I didn't enjoy any of it. And the next day I decided to make some changes, which involved quitting smoking and quitting DJing. And they were my things. I like, they're the problem things. It's the cigarettes, it's those vinyl records. They're the problem, not the drinking. So that was a bit of a turning point. And from that point, I started to think about how I could develop, a bit of a personal development journey. So at that point, the first thing I did, so this was turning 35, was I started running. Like, I was terribly unfit and I couldn't run for more than 5 minutes. But within a year, I got more and more into it, and I ran a marathon. I was like, hey, sense of achievement. Like, I felt so much better in myself. And it was the first clue that rather than reaching to external things to change my state, change my conscious state, or change how I felt, I could change that by realizing that we've got this infinite pharmacy within, someone calls it, so that I could get all these endorphins, I could get this serotonin flowing from just running. So, the classic runner's high. So that really started my personal development journey. And then I had a really good manager at the time, and he was like, you need to journal. So I'd do journaling, and I'd be journaling about these horrible nights out that I didn't enjoy. I was still having these big nights out, and the shame and the guilt and all this stuff. And it was a really good reflection tool. And then the real change happened about within that year, when I learned to meditate. And what that did is it gave me a way of, that's, as I was mentioning before, that I was looking to alcohol for this solution, whether it was to overthinking, or by this point it was often stress. It was like work stress. And I was like, I need to drink to bring myself down after a big day at work. Finding meditation was a way to go, hey, right, it's Friday, 4 p.m. and I used to feel bad because I'd had this stressful week. So I needed to drink, and drinking made me feel slightly better. As a consistent daily meditator, I was then just like, I just feel good. What do I want to do? I don't want to make myself feel like shit tomorrow. So that then made it much easier to drink less. And then it was a bit of a gradual process after that, a couple more years. And then I stopped drinking completely in right at the end of 2017. And yeah, haven't looked back.
Yeah. No more hangovers for sure.
Oh, yeah, can't believe how bad, because I wouldn't even get like physically sick. Like I've had ex-girlfriends who would vomit multiple times on a hangover, and I never had that, but it was just that crushing sense of, just the mental version of just feeling awful.
Yeah. Um, I love that your journey was so gradual. And I really want to like kind of lean into what that finality in 2017, what was the just I'm done moment?
Yeah, well, again, it was a bit of this. So this is something that comes up in my work with other people, in that I would consider myself a high functioning drinker, and that meant that I didn't have this what I would call a rock bottom point. There's this book that I often mention. Uh, I can't remember its name now, but it was A Million Little Pieces. It was famous in the early 2000s, and it's a partly fictional, but story of addiction. And at the opening scene is this guy, James Fry. He wakes up on a plane and he's handcuffed to the seat. He's missing all his teeth. He's got a hole in his cheek, and he doesn't know where he is. I was like, right, that is rock bottom.
Yeah.
He's on the way to like enforced rehab. I was like, I never had that. I just had, my life isn't going the way I want it, and I'm going to proactively make a decision. So what finally changed it for me was, well, I went on this week-long meditation retreat with one of my teachers in Mexico, and that acted as this final bit of clarity that I needed. Plus, there was someone I met on that trip, my now friend Claire, who acted as a good example. Like she'd quit drinking a year before, and at this point, so 2017, there were less. It was less of a thing. This sobriety, sober movement. It was like you're an alcoholic in AA or you're a normal drinker. It was more so like that. So
Yeah.
this was just like, oh, someone's just chosen. This yoga teacher's chosen not to drink. Doesn't align with her values anymore. So that was part of it for me. Like by this point, I'd become a meditation teacher. And then it was like, well, hang on. So I'm like here for my students, and I'm all like this calm guy, but like don't call me on a Sunday because I'll be like shriveled up in this hole of regret. It was just that it just didn't. It was not appropriate, and it just wasn't in alignment. So I was like, plus all those things I mentioned before about the hangovers. It was just like, hang on, I could just not drink. I could just try not drinking. So importantly, it was only in hindsight that it was this big decision.
Yeah.
At the time, I was just like, I'm not going to drink. Like I did dry January 2018, having done New Year as well. And dry January is big in the Northern Hemisphere, but not at all in Australia because it's prime summertime. So that was an interesting experience, but I felt so good coming back off this retreat and having had this inspiration of someone else who was enjoying life, not drinking. I was like, okay, I'm just going to give dry January a go, and the fact that it was the middle of summer, it wasn't this hibernation thing, meant that I had to go to all these events. Like I went to a wedding in New Zealand. There was like a big boat party for Australia Day. I also went skiing in Japan, and it was like all of these things really helped quash the idea that I needed alcohol for even for like special occasions. Like, and then after that, it was just like, right, I'm now going to extend it for another month, and then extend it for another month. So I've never, even now, I've not said I've quit forever. Like it's just not a useful thing to say. And I encourage people that I work with not to think in terms of forever, because then you've got to go through all the holidays you're going to have, all your birthdays, all your big birthdays, everyone you know's big birthdays,
Yeah.
right? And it's just too much pressure. So I just was feeling at that point that I'm enjoying this experience of not drinking, and I'm just going to continue it for a bit longer.
I love that. I love, so there's a couple things I want to dive into a little more, but I love that you made this commitment to do the dry January, and within the containment of that, had these big things that showed you you didn't need alcohol. And I just think that's really beautiful. And I really like what you said about not saying, I'm not quitting, right? You're just choosing to not drink, it sounds like. Uh, So do you continue to
Yeah, and
refresh that
that's,
commitment? How does that work?
I mean, now I don't, yeah, I mean, I don't have to, right? It's like you said, it's just a choice. So I'm just choosing it because, like I'm sure it is for you, because it's now part of my professional identity. Like I've got so many reasons not to do it that it's just never comes up. And even, even at near the beginning, so another key thing that I did that, not everyone has to do, but was really helpful for me was I was still a journalist at the time, and I decided to write about my experience. So I
Oh,
wrote this article, which was 100 days, what I learned from not drinking for 100 days. And I did these articles for websites, and I did this quite often, and they would just get however many readers, and this one just blew up, and
mhm.
it got something like, it got hundreds of thousands of people saw it, kind of went viral, including everyone who I knew had read it. So then it was more like I was being consistent by just sticking to what, people would come up to me and they'd be like, oh yeah, I was really inspired by your article, or I like this, I like that. And then it was just because I'd been public about it,
Yeah,
that then helped. Not that I'd kind of committed myself to it publicly, but I was enjoying that it was part of my persona then. And that was something actually that Claire Robbie, who was the yoga teacher who inspired me, that was part of her journey as well. She, a year before this, she'd posted something on her Facebook saying, hey, I'm doing this, and she'd got such a good feedback from people that it really helped. So a lot of people I work with want to be private about it because they don't want to admit to any kind of failing or anything, or even risk publicly failing. But there's a huge benefit in, for those who are open to it, in being public.
social
it,
accountability.
yeah, 100%, and in a good way. And it's like, rather than feeling like you're this weird different person, but because in that 100-day article I just wrote normal stuff like, I'm enjoying not having hangovers. Like, running's easier. Social events aren't as hard as I thought they would be. Drunk people are boring, right? And then I'd get people. I'd get people who would resonate with those things. Then it was like, oh yeah, you struggle with this, or you struggle with that, or you had this thing when you were tried to moderate and you couldn't. And it means that then you've got connection with other people about this thing, and it makes it it just smoothed the process a lot for me.
Yeah. So what were some of the challenges?
In that first 100 days,
Certainly, yeah.
yeah, well, for me it was mostly, so as I mentioned, I had periods where I used alcohol to sleep. Did have it as a stress reliever, but because at this point I'd been meditating for a couple of years, the stress bit had gone. So any of that temptation to drink alone, or coping mechanism drinking. So I like to think of it, there's coping mechanism drinking, and then there's like fun, in inverted commas, drinking. So I'd already dealt with the coping mechanism drinking. So the challenges for me were all on the social side. And I remember like when I landed back from Mexico, so this was like a week in, where I was thinking about doing dry January, but this is my first challenge. Was an invitation to the pub. It was like this couple friends I knew. It was their leaving do, and I was like, oh, I can't go. I can either go and drink, or I cannot go. And then I had this revelation, which seems so silly in retrospect, but I was like, I could go and not drink. And I was like, whoa, it's like this thunderbolt moment of this is so devilishly simple. Why hasn't anyone thought of this before? But it had literally never occurred to me before to do that. So I mean, the challenges were just going through those first experiences of, what are people going to say when I order like a sparkling water? Because at this point there weren't alcohol. I'm sure there were alcohol-free beers, but they weren't in bars and stuff. So it was more like, right, I'm going to have like a child's drink, or I'm going to have, I would have sparkling water. So anyway, so those first that one afternoon in the pub, that was the first big challenge. And what I noticed was that, I had all these beliefs, like things like everyone drinks, and I would just assume that everyone else was getting wasted, getting hammered, right? And then going into this with a different frame of reference, I would see that it was an afternoon thing. Lots of people weren't drinking, or people were drinking very tamely. So that experience of, and also no one cared what I was drinking, right, on that particular occasion anyway. So that then, broke all these things of, or thinking like the drinking police are going to come in and someone's going to pin me down and pour like tequila shots down my neck, or so, all this crazy stuff. It's like, oh, it was completely normal. No one batted an eyelid. And then what I gained from that was that rather than going to the really messy after party, I instead stayed for 3 hours, had a really nice time chatting to everyone, and then went and had a second event that I went to, not drinking, and I drove, and I was like, this is so much cheaper. And I got all this social contact, and I guess because I'd grown up, I've matured a lot since that teenage version of me that had this social anxiety. Right, it was just fine, because I was 40 by this point, so it's just like I'm hanging out with people I know. It's like it's not a problem. So those, I guess, those challenges of the early, and there were a few people, not that many, but there were a few people who are like, they're digging and they're like come on, or they'll say things like you're boring, or but that was much, much less than I thought it was going to be. And working with people now. Go
Oh, I was
on.
going to say, how did you work with that? Like those people that were digging in, like, how did you handle that?
Well, yeah. Well, a big part of why meditation was a big change for me was, so when I first learned to meditate in 2014, in that week, I had no thought of cutting out my drinking, but it was something that I didn't, I knew it wasn't. I would like to have drunk less, but it wasn't my plan.
Yeah.
And then what I found was that a lot of the drinking that I didn't want to be doing was people pleasing drinking. So it'd be like someone else wants to drink, or it's like work drinks, and it's kind of expected. And what I noticed in that first week of learning to meditate was that people pleaser tendency had calmed down. So I was much more able to stick to my guns on, I don't want to drink for my reasons because I want to have a clear head tomorrow. Meditating gave me this inner confidence, or being comfortable in my own skin, just to stick to that. So by the time people are then digging into me, or teasing, or that kind of thing, I was kind of like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not bothered. And And the other thing with that is people soon get bored with it. So it would be, on an evening, it might be by the second or third drink, they've forgotten, right? Or they're already getting drunk. They don't care. Right. And then you give them a lift home and they're like that.
They're like, "Wait, you drove me home?"
Yeah.
Um, Rory, I wanna pivot into how this work how this experience has led to the work that you're doing now. So, you try a dry January, it goes great, you keep going. Um, I love that because that aligns with multiple other guests and experiences that have been shared. And I think it's beautiful. And here we are almost 8 years later. How'd you get to where you are and what do you do?
Yeah. So, um, yeah. Well, interesting question. So the kind of short answer is that, so like one of the reasons that I said was that it was, drinking was now incompatible, or it was 8 years ago, because I'd started teaching meditation. Right. It was on the side. It was my side hustle. I still had my media job, but it was my side hustle that I really enjoyed it. So in that teaching of meditation, I was always like, how do I find new ways to get people interested in this? And what I found was that, because I would just, again, because I was a journalist, I'd write these articles going, these are the top 5 benefits of meditating, or this is why you should meditate, and these just meditation focused things. But when instead that I wrote about like that 100 days article that I mentioned, in that I said, oh yeah, I meditated and that made things easier. And I got lots of new clients for meditation based on that kind of throwaway, by the way, um, line. So it made me think about, have this as a niche for what I was already doing with meditation teaching. It was like, look, this can really help people. Because I'd be doing my meditation intro talk saying, like, it can help with high blood pressure, and it can help with stress, and it can help with, sleep. And it's like a huge list of really major benefits. But there's like so many that it would just get lost.
Mhm.
So then I was like, well, if I just start saying, well, look, it can help you not need a drink as much. Right. So having that been my experience. So I I used that as a way to, get people to meditate, and then they would get all those benefits anyway. So, and I enjoyed working with people, and especially like creating a different, uh in this, which was quite new at the time, the idea of, helping people who aren't rock bottom. I need to go to rehab, I've been arrested, my teeth have been knocked out. For people who more high functioning people who had jobs but drank more than they wanted to. And I enjoyed seeing this transformation in people, and being, it's so rewarding to be part of someone else's journey, especially being able to give them like a tool so they're not white knuckling it, that they're doing this technique, which leads me on to the second part of your 2-part question, which is, what do I do? Right. So what I do is, I help people reduce or quit drinking, and I do that via an approach, worth a 3-pillar approach, which starts with breaking the cycle of needing a drink at a certain point. So many people find themselves reaching for a drink at 4, 5, 6 p.m. because they might have woken up going, nope, I'm not going to drink today, I'm all good. And then it reaches this point in the day where they're either feeling stressed, or they're feeling tired, or they're feeling bored, or they feel like they need a reward. And their mind and body has created this pattern of needing something at that point. So what I do first of all with people is I get them meditating, right? So I'm like, your mind and body's needing something. It wants to switch off. It wants to have a break. So we're gonna get you meditating. So I teach them meditation. The specific style I teach is called Vedic meditation. It's a mantra-based technique. We sit with our back supported, and we think a gentle, calming sound. So in the first, so that's the first thing I do with people. I'm like, you need to be able to cope with life better. So we're going to get you meditating. And a lot of that is getting past people's resistance, because, by 2025, most people have tried some kind of meditation, and they may not have had good results, or they may be thinking, no, my monkey mind's too much for this, right? So a lot of it is me going, this is okay, this is natural, this is normal. If rather than just doing it in a yoga class or watching a YouTube video or doing an app, like when you learn with a teacher and they hold your hand through it and they say, hey, that thing you're experiencing now, it's completely normal. This is how you get past it. Right? So doing that with people, giving them this healthy coping mechanism is the first step. Then I work with people one-on-one in a coaching relationship style to work through. So if the first step is breaking the cycle of drinking by giving them a different way to relax, the second step is then digging underneath and seeing if there are any root causes or underlying patterns or beliefs. So, just from the story that I related there, like my underlying beliefs were, I need this to relax. I need this to be okay in social situations. I need this to do karaoke on holiday in Japan, right? So they're kind of drinking related beliefs, or there might be more deep seated beliefs like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy. And that would be part of that. That would have fed into my people pleaser tendencies of, they're not going to like me if I don't do what they want me to do. So working with people to go through those things using various coaching techniques like NLP. And then the third way that I work with people is saying, okay, so we're going to break the cycle of drinking, giving you a new coping mechanism. We're going to get under the hood and find out if there's any underlying beliefs or, healing old traumas, that kind of stuff that might be pulling you back into this. And then the third step is about really building a fulfilling life that doesn't rely on alcohol. And that's like a holistic thing of, what's your diet like? What's your exercise like? What's your social life like? What's your relationship like? Is your work satisfying? So doing all those things to be a happy, healthy person, and aligning your behaviors with your values, right? So that this period of you not drinking or severely moderating is so different from what the drinking experience was, that it blasts through any of those lingering doubts of, but yeah, like I had someone talking about their beliefs yesterday, and they were like, but alcohol's my friend. And I was like, look, you just talked to me for half an hour about how bad this is for you. If it's your friend, this is a toxic friendship. Right? So it's that 3-step approach of teaching them to meditate, and then coaching them through the underlying beliefs, and then creating a fulfilling life, plus providing accountability. So this isn't, I don't work with people who need medical detox or any kind of medical intervention. For most drinkers that I work with, it's a psychological thing, and that might include them drinking a bottle of wine a night, but it's not a bottle of whiskey in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's a psychological thing, and because people I work with are often what I call high functioning professional people, they benefit from accountability. Like, them being high functioning is they'll go to work and they'll do their assignment and they'll do what their client needs to do. By adding in a coach, it means that they want to do what they agreed to do with me. Right? So it's that positive peer pressure, positive social pressure that you were talking about before, but in this much more structured professional relationship, which also is really important because along the journey, people usually have like setbacks or slip ups, where it's if you're going through this on your own, it's very tempting in that hangover pit of despair to say, well, this is ruined. Why am I bothering? I'm just going to give up. And then you get back, you fall back. Whereas if you have a coach, it's like, so I had someone recently who they got to 6 weeks of not drinking, and then they had something really stressful happened, and they ended up having a bottle of wine or 2 bottles of wine. So they're like, look, it's just one step forward, 2 steps back. Why am I bothering? And I'm like, you went for 6 weeks without drinking. That's 36 or 42 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
Right? I.e., that's 41 steps forward. Right? And you can't see that from the pit of the hangover hole that you're in, but helping people, get up, dust themselves off, learn from it. It's like, okay, well, look, what happened then? And it almost always, it's like, well, did you do your meditation? And they were like, no, I didn't have time. It's like, okay, well, that's something to play into it. Like, I've seen it so often that the days that people do have setbacks coincide with them not doing, not just meditation, but generally their self-care has fallen off. And for a lot of people, it's they're too, that people pleaser tendency, that a framework that I the 4 tendencies framework, Gretchen Rubin, where one of them is called the obliger, and many of my clients fall into this obliger, like people pleaser bracket, where they neglect their self-care because they're looking after other people, right? Or they're working too hard at their job, and that wears them down. So it's like, look, yeah. So it's like, look, we need to carve out this time for your self-care, which meditation's a really efficient way of doing that self-care in a short amount of time, where you don't need to, go for a long run, or you don't need to go to the gym, or you don't need to go for an expensive massage. So really helping people carve out that time and understand the benefits of that. Because it's great that people are thinking about other people and helping other people and looking after other people, but we can only give what we have. Like, you need to fill your own cup.
Can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. So it's just saying, look, plus it's making you drink, right? So it's just, and that's, people who I work with, they've been drinking for decades, right? Everyone's been drinking for decades. I quit. I stopped drinking at 40, and I still drank for 25 years. Many people I work with, they're 50 plus, 60 plus. Like, there's decades and decades of ingrained behavior. So this is the other thing. It's like it's usually not an overnight fix. So then it's like, you need that reassurance along the way. You need that guidance to be like, well, this is good. It's good that you got this. Like, when people have a setback, it's like, this is research. It's like, we didn't know about this trigger. Now we know about it. So now we can be a bit more careful around, airports or whatever it happens to have been.
It's information, right?
Yeah. It's information. It's feedback.
Rory, like, normally I have so many more questions, and to be honest, I feel like this is probably one of the most powerful interviews I've ever done. You've given so much context and real, like, tactile tips as far as, like, navigating this, and just highly relatable. So thank you for that. And I want to ask kind of a weird question. Um, what is one thing you would share with somebody struggling right now or curious that they're listening to this? Just one thing.
That change is possible, right? That change is possible, and because often I'll speak to people, they'll be like, they're scared. They're scared, right? So it's the fear is the barrier to any change, right? If you want to change, you'll be in your comfort zone. So know that by stepping, you're going to be scared of whatever you're thinking about doing. So if it's changing something like drinking, you're going to be scared about it. You're going to have fear, whether that's fear of failure, or fear of being able to cope. But back yourself to get through that fear, because there's no change if you don't go through that. You've got the comfort zone, the fear zone, then you've got the learning zone, the growth zone. You need to back yourself to get through that, trusting that the future you is going to thank the current you for being brave and doing something different. Because if you don't change anything, you're going to get the results that you've always been getting, which you probably, if you're listening to this, you probably don't want those anymore.
Yeah. Where can people find you? Where can they learn more? Do you work internationally? Is it online? Is it in person? Do you take insurance? Like, I have all the questions. Please give us all the answers.
Yeah, so you can find me. So the website that I use for alcohol coaching is called Wise Monkey Way, and that just came up through one of the ways that I taught this, which is like there's a wise monkey version of you that makes good decisions, and then there's like a stress monkey, wine monkey. So like meditation's a way to feed that wise monkey version of you. So the wisemonkeyway.com is the main website for this. And if people want to go, there's a free resource I have on there. It just says free download at the top, and it's a PDF download that says the 3 biggest mistakes people make when trying to control drinking. So that's a really good place that people can start. Also through that, I offer a free consultation where I'll talk through that approach that I talked about, that 3-step approach. I talk with people through how that might work for them. I do all this on Zoom. I do it online. I work with people worldwide. As we were saying before, we switched on. So I'm in Australia, but US works quite well time zone wise. Yeah. I do stuff if you happen to be in the Byron Bay area of Australia. Insurance, not sure. It's especially for the US, I don't know, but it's a holistic coaching type approach. So it depends if your insurance covers that or not. What is the other question?
Well, we'll share your website and then your social media.
Yeah, so on Instagram, you can find me. My name's Rory Kinsella Meditation, and I've been quite good with my digital hygiene. I haven't posted for ages, but I do sometimes post. So yeah, and I also do retreats. So I do sober retreats. I don't have one planned at the moment, but I did 2 in Bali in the last year. And that was while I am, I love online because it's just very accessible for people. And I do group online meditations as well. In-person stuff's very satisfying as well. And, I met clients that I've been working with on the last Bali retreat for 4 years, and I'd seen them so many times on Zoom, and I'm like, John, wow, you're so tall. All those things when you haven't met someone in person. But yeah, Rory Kinsella Meditation on Instagram or Facebook.
Awesome. Rory, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I know this is going to be one of those episodes where people are going to be shooting me DMs and thanking me for connecting them with, such a great person. Thank you for your time and for sharing this space. Is there anything else you want to share before I let you go?
Well, no, Courtney, just to say thank you to you, and thank you for providing this space and these resources for people. It's a hugely valuable job that you're doing. So I thank you for that.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. You can tag me on Instagram at Undrunken Podcast. I love hearing from you. Take care of yourself and keep making good choices.